There are days when no one offends you, no accidents happen, no clear loss unfolds, and yet it feels like the whole world has turned its back on you. No one out there is hurting you. It's your own mind quietly driving the knife in. The same thoughts repeat themselves. I'm not good enough. I'll fail again. Nothing's ever going to change. They don't shout, they whisper, and they eat away at you from within. We often believe that what goes on in our mind must be true, but Stoicism teaches the opposite. The mind is a battlefield, and not every voice deserves your trust. You can choose to respond differently. You can reclaim control from your negative thoughts, learn to observe rather than be swept away, reshape your inner dialogue rather than letting it shape you. Freedom doesn't come from changing the world. It comes from changing the way you think about it. So how do you master your mind like a Stoic? Start here. 1. Thoughts are clouds. You are the sky. There's a strange paradox most of us fall into. We become victims of our own minds. Not because we're weak, but because we were never taught we could step outside our thoughts and observe them. All our lives we've been told, your thoughts are who you are. That if a harsh phrase like, I'm a failure, appears in your head, it must be true. We don't realize. A thought is a reflex, not a verdict. Picture your mind as the sky vast, calm, steady. Each thought is just a passing cloud, sometimes gentle, sometimes stormy. There are days when the sky is full of dark clouds, but that doesn't make it any less the sky. The problem is, we've forgotten we are the sky. We identify with every cloud, thinking that just because there's rain today, we must be the storm. That just because a thought arises, we must be that thought. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire and wrestled with unspoken thoughts, once wrote, "If a thought disturbs you, ask whether it deserves to stay." This isn't just a reminder, it's a declaration of freedom. Thoughts hold no power unless we invite them to stay. Imagine sitting in a cafe and a stranger walks by and tosses out a sarcastic comment. You have two choices: get up and chase after them, or sip your coffee and let them pass as if they never existed. Negative thoughts are the same, they're just strangers passing by. Unless you invite them to sit down, they have no right to control your mood or dictate your life. The problem isn't that you have negative thoughts. The problem is that you believe them as if they were the only truth. And when you believe something, you start to act from that belief. You shrink back in meetings because a voice says, "I have nothing worth saying." You avoid opportunities because your mind keeps repeating, "I'll probably fail again." You don't move forward because you forget you can choose not to believe those voices. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." So if one thought can make you curl up in fear, another can open a path forward. But to do that, you must stop being swept away and become the observer. Next time you hear, "I'm not good enough," pause, breathe, and ask, is this truth or just a cloud? If it's a cloud, let it pass. No need to push it away, no need to fight it. Just remember, you don't have to hold on to everything that drifts through the sky. You don't have to hold on to every thought you think. Freedom doesn't come from clearing the sky, it comes from knowing you were never the clouds to begin with. You are the still space behind all turbulence, and once you stand firmly in that space, no thought can bind you again. 2. Rewrite the inner dialogue. There's a quiet kind of language you use every day, so frequently you no longer notice it. Not the words you use with others, but the way you speak to yourself. This is your inner dialogue, the silent phrases you repeat in your head whenever you make a mistake, fail, get rejected, or simply look in the mirror. The problem is, Most of us don't talk to ourselves like a friend. We talk like a critic. When we mess something up, we don't think, "I need to learn from this." We think, "I'm such an idiot." When our body feels tired, we don't say, "I need rest." We say, "I'm weak." When someone rejects us, we don't think, "Maybe they weren't a good match." We say, "I'm not good enough." Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, the mind can make itself into a fortress or a prison. It depends on how we speak to ourselves. You can build a strong inner sanctuary, or you can trap yourself in judgment. And the truth is, no one else builds that prison but you. Imagine if you had a companion who followed you everywhere, whispering in your ear every day. If that person kept saying things like, "You're not good enough," "You failed again," "Everyone else is better than you," you'd soon call it a toxic relationship. But when those words come from within, you accept them as normal. Inner freedom begins with realizing you can change that voice. Not by forcing fake positivity, but by choosing words that are more honest, more grounded, more supportive. Instead of, "I always mess everything up," try, "I didn't do well this time, but I'm learning." Instead of, "I'm a terrible person," try, "That was a poor choice and I can correct it." You don't need to turn every phrase into a motivational slogan. You just need to stop being your own enemy. Epictetus taught, "We are not free to control the world out there, but we are always free to choose how we speak to ourselves." If you repeat a negative story long enough, it will shape the way you see the world. And likewise, if you learn to speak to yourself with kindness, with patience, with a long view, you're rebuilding the foundation of a resilient mind. Remember, thoughts are seeds, inner words are soil, and actions are the fruit. If you plant phrases like, "I can never do it," don't be surprised when you don't move forward. But if you change the story to, "I haven't done it yet, but I'm learning how," you've opened a path. And maybe next time, when you're about to say to yourself that you're not enough, you'll pause and ask, "If a dear friend said this to me, how would I respond?" Because what you say in your head is never harmless. It's the echo your life will follow. Choose your words anew. And from there, choose the person you're becoming. 3. Control what's yours. Let go of what's not. There's a quiet exhaustion many people can't name. It's what happens when you try to control what was never yours to hold. You wake up heavy-hearted just because someone didn't reply to your message. You carry anger all day because a driver cut you off. You feel like a failure because your boss didn't acknowledge your effort. And slowly, you lose trust in yourself, not because you're weak, but because you're trying to control the uncontrollable. Stoicism begins with a simple but profound truth. Some things belong to you, and some don't. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You can control your mind. Everything else, let it unfold as it must." But in reality, we often do the opposite. We neglect our inner world while trying to control the outer one. We let anxiety rule us, but we try to control how others feel. We abandon our peace, yet pour all our energy into managing outcomes, manipulating opinions, forcing change. What's the result? Exhaustion, confusion, and a chronic sense of helplessness. Imagine you're rowing a boat in open waters. The wind picks up, the waves grow stronger. If you fight the wind, curse the waves, punch the sea because it's not going your way, you'll drown. But if you focus on your oars, steer your direction, maintain your balance, you won't just survive. You'll go farther than you thought possible. Your mind works the same way. What others think, do, or feel, those are not yours to command. Your emotions, behaviors, and choices, those are. Once you see this clearly, your energy shifts back to where it belongs. Epictetus once said, "Don't wish for the wind to change. Learn to adjust your sails. Everything outside failure, criticism, silence, upheaval. These are the winds. You don't command the wind, but you can learn how to use it. So how do you practice this? Start with one question. Is this within my control? If not, let it go. Not because you've given up, but because you refuse to give your emotional steering wheel to something that was never yours. You can't force someone to love you, but you can love with sincerity, without demand. You can't change how someone treats you, but you can choose how to respond with self-respect. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the effort. And peace doesn't lie in winning or losing, it lies in knowing the boundary between the two. Letting go isn't weakness. Letting go of the right things is strength. And true strength is holding firm to what's yours and releasing what never was. Imagine how your life would change if your mind no longer clung to every word, every glance, every little disruption. Imagine waking up each morning focused on just 3 things: clear thinking, deliberate action, and an unshakable attitude. That is the foundation of a sovereign life. 4. Rethink and rewrite the story you're living. You don't live in the truth. You live in the story you tell yourself about the truth. And what's frightening is that most of these stories weren't written by you. They were shaped by moments of childhood ridicule, by wounds left unhealed, by prejudices planted in your mind by others, then repeated by you until they hardened into undeniable facts. We don't name these stories, we simply act them out. A person once rejected may spend a lifetime believing, "I'm not worthy of love." Someone who once failed may reject every new opportunity because they believe, "I'm just not the kind of person who succeeds." You don't need anyone to trap you in a box, you've already locked it from the inside. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your mind will be shaped by what you repeatedly dwell upon. So be careful with what you allow yourself to believe." This is more than a warning. It's an invitation. An invitation to examine the story you're living. You may be living as though you're someone who's always late, who always quits halfway, who's always afraid of rejection, who's always less than others. But if you look closely, you might find that these ways are just repetitions of a few old experiences labeled, exaggerated, and buried in your subconscious as if they were your nature. The problem is, once you believe that story, you start behaving as if it were fate. You don't apply for the better job because you're not enough. You don't speak up in meetings because you're not smart. You don't leave the toxic relationship because you believe you can't do better. You don't need external chains. The story you tell yourself is the heaviest chain. So how do you break it? Start by rethinking consciously. Write down what you believe about yourself, one line at a time. Then ask, who told me this? What makes me believe this is true? And most importantly, does this belief serve the person I want to become? The old story may have been told 1,000 times, but the moment you're clear-eyed enough to question it, you've already begun to rewrite it. You don't need to create a rosy new narrative. You just need one that's more honest, one that allows room for failure, but also for progress. One that remembers past mistakes, but also grants permission to begin again. Epictetus once said, "Nothing prevents you from living by reason, except the beliefs you haven't yet dared to question." You can begin today. Rewrite the way you speak about yourself. Rewrite the way you interpret failure. Rewrite how you envision the future. Because when you change the narrative, you don't just change how you live, you change who you're becoming. 5. See adversity as the training ground. Most of us grow up with an unspoken belief. A good life is an easy life. Few bumps, few failures, little pain. And if something feels uncomfortable, it must be the wrong path. But that's an illusion, and it keeps us from ever truly growing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle to action becomes the action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't being poetic. He was laying out a principle for living. Adversity isn't what blocks our growth, it's what forges it. You won't find a warrior stepping out of a spa. You'll find him coming out of mud, pain, and long days where no one believed in him except himself. Because just as muscle only strengthens when it resists weight, the human spirit becomes steadfast only through adversity. Think back to the last time you truly struggled. A major failure, a painful loss, a season where everything fell apart. At the time, you didn't feel grateful, you just wanted out. But looking back, it was in those moments that the outer ego was stripped away, forcing you to look inward and rebuild from within. No one enters a gym expecting comfort. You go to push limits, to burn, to sweat. And why do you accept that? Because you know it's how you grow stronger. So why, when life turns up the pressure, do we call it unfair? Stoicism teaches something different. Hardship isn't something to avoid. It's something to engage. Not because we enjoy pain, but because we understand that pain is a form of training and approached properly. It gives us something ease never could: inner strength. Epictetus, once a slave and later one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "If you want to improve, prepare to be misunderstood, mocked, and wounded. That's the price of freedom." There is no future version of you that is wiser, steadier, stronger who hasn't first walked through pain. The question isn't, why is this happening to me? The question is, who will I become because of this? When you change the question, you change your position. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the one training through it. An athlete doesn't resent hard sessions. He knows that's where he's being shaped. A Stoic lives the same way. From now on, whenever life puts you in a tough spot, pause and whisper to yourself, "This is the gym." No one else may see that you're training, but you know. And that is enough. Because the man who remains calm in the storm isn't someone who never hurt. He is someone who has hurt enough to know that the storm cannot break him. It's building him. 6. Return to the present and be grateful for it. You might be living a life of abundance, yet still feel like something is missing. Not because you lack money, opportunity, or companionship, but because you're absent from your own life. You're there, but you're not really present. You're eating dinner, but thinking about the email you haven't replied to. You're walking outside, but replaying yesterday's argument. You're sitting next to the one you love, but your mind is gripped by tomorrow's worries. And so, you live your whole life in moments that don't exist. The past is gone, the future hasn't come, and the present is abandoned. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, don't let the rest of your life pass you by in distraction. Focus on what's in front of you with reason and gratitude. He was emperor of an empire, yet feared the scattering of his own mind. If he had to remind himself to stay awake, how much more must we, in an age of constant notifications? Ironically, happiness isn't found in something far off. It's right here in a single breath, in the hum of a fan, in the eyes of the person sitting across from you. But you can't touch it if you're chasing something ahead or haunted by what's behind. Seneca once wrote, "The wise man does not grieve over what he lacks, but rejoices in what he has." Gratitude doesn't arrive when life is perfect. It arrives when you pause long enough to see that even if things aren't ideal, there is still so much you have that you've never truly appreciated. You're breathing. You still have time. You have the chance to repair, to love, to learn, to begin again. And those are the very things the dying would beg for, but you're You're living among them, and yet you feel nothing. The truth is, you don't need more to be happy. You just need to be more present. Think back on today. How many moments were you truly there? How many times did you notice sunlight filtering through the trees? Hear the laughter of someone close? Taste cold water without your thoughts interrupting with a to-do list? The answer for most of us is very few. And that's not your fault. It's the effect of a world designed to pull you away from the present with news, with comparison, with noise. But you can reclaim it. You don't need hours of meditation or a retreat in the mountains. You just need a few minutes a day to give your full attention to what you're doing. And in that moment, you'll realize you don't need to go anywhere. Peace is already here in the present. Gratitude is not blind optimism. It is inner humility. It is the recognition that, no matter how chaotic life may be, there are still countless things unfolding in your favor worthy of your reverence. And if you can return to the present and see it through grateful eyes, then you're not just alive. You're truly living. 7. The view from above. Shrink the problem. Expand the mind. There are moments when it feels like the whole world is pressing down on your shoulders. A passing remark haunts you for a week. A small failure turns into a verdict on your self-worth. A plan falling apart makes you question your entire future. You feel trapped in a narrow room where everything echoes too loudly, too closely, too unbearably to even breathe. And in those moments, what you need isn't to escape reality, but to step far enough back to see the whole picture. That's the practice the Romans called the view from above. Not to deny the problem, but to resize it. Marcus Aurelius, amidst years of war, plague, and rebellion, reminded himself, view life as if you were dead. From that perspective, nothing is important enough to cost you your sanity. You don't have to be an emperor to understand this. You just need a bit of courage to step outside your wounded ego. Because the closer you stand to pain, the more it looks like an insurmountable wall. But when you step back far enough, you see it for what it is, a small stone on a long path. And you can still move forward. Picture this. You're sitting in a familiar room, overwhelmed by rejection, lack of recognition, or an old wound resurfaced. Now close your eyes. Imagine yourself from the ceiling, then higher from the rooftop, from your city, from the atmosphere, and then from space where this whole planet is nothing more than a pale blue dot. From that vantage point, you, along with your worry, anger, and sadness, become humble, lighter, and easier to carry. From that view, you no longer see yourself as the center of a tragedy. You see yourself as one small part of a far greater tapestry. And what's surprising is that when you shrink the problem, you expand your mind. You stop reacting like a trapped victim and begin responding like a learner with clarity and even compassion. Epictetus once said, "What disturbs you is rarely as big as you think it's just too close." Like holding your eyes right up to a screen, everything becomes distorted, painful, overwhelming. But pull back just a little, and you see the full picture. And suddenly, you understand it's just one small part, not the whole world. This isn't magic, it's a skill. And you can practice it every day. When someone insults you, imagine watching the conversation from the 30th floor. When you're rejected, imagine your future self 5 years from now, looking back. When life feels chaotic, imagine you're writing a memoir, and this is just one temporary chapter. You can't erase the challenge, but you can change your perspective. And sometimes just seeing it differently is all you need to feel free. 8. Discipline. No inspiration needed, just begin. There's something successful people rarely say out loud because it sounds too ordinary to be impressive. They don't wait for inspiration, they just begin. Most of us live as though the ideal conditions will arrive on their own. A morning without fatigue, a day without distractions, a moment when the mind is sharp and the heart on fire. But the truth is, if you wait to feel ready, you may wait your whole life. And while you wait, time moves on. Opportunities vanish, and your better self goes unnamed. Marcus Aurelius didn't have the luxury of delay. As emperor of an empire, he rose before dawn, wrote his thoughts, faced wars, plagues, betrayals, not because he felt like it, but because he understood. Duty does not require emotional permission. He wrote, "When you wake up each morning, don't grumble about your tasks. You were born to do them. You weren't born to doze in comfort. You were born to move through laziness, through hesitation, through that voice in your head saying, 'It's okay to skip today.' Discipline is not a personality trait. It's a decision repeated daily, regardless of how you feel. It's getting up without being pushed, starting without applause, continuing when the results are still uncertain. Stoicism doesn't promise ease. It only points to the right path and leaves the choice to you. Epictetus taught, "Before you become who you want to be, act like that person already exists." You want to be consistent, then act as if you already are, even when you're trembling, even when you don't yet believe it. Picture a soldier training in the rain. No audience, no spotlight, no praise. Just steady steps, heavy breath, and self-discipline. He doesn't train because he feels motivated. He trains because he knows. When the real test comes, it won't be emotion that saves him, it'll be habit. Your life is no different. You may not carry a sword onto a battlefield, but you face daily resistance each morning, disinterest each night, temptations that promise ease, and dreams slowly fading from lack of effort. And no inspiration will ever be strong enough to save you from that only you and a single first step. Don't wait for inspiration to write. Write one line. Don't wait to feel excited to exercise. Begin with 5 minutes. Don't wait for the right time to change. Take one small action today in the direction of who you want to be. And if discipline teaches you anything over time, it's this. Inspiration doesn't lead to action. Action leads to inspiration. And the first action is always the hardest, but it's also the only one you truly need. 9. Master your emotions. Don't let them drive the train. There's a kind of strength that makes no noise, requires no muscle, and doesn't assert itself with words. It's the strength of someone who stays calm while the world around them is falling apart. And interestingly, you don't need any magical technique to gain it. You just need to learn not to let your emotions drive blindly. Because most suffering in your life doesn't come from events. It comes from your reaction to those events. You may not control the first flash of anger, but you can decide whether to let it lead. You may not stop the rise of sadness, but you can choose not to let it dictate your actions. Stoicism doesn't teach us to suppress emotions, it teaches us to master them with reason, so they don't take the wheel. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, emotions are fleeting reactions. They can't harm you unless you let them command. And in truth, you've seen it before. Someone says something careless, you let it ruin your entire day. One flaw in someone else, and you overreact, damaging the relationship. One failure leaves you too ashamed to try again. But look closer. It wasn't the event that broke you, it was the reaction you chose. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens that makes us suffer, but how we judge it." That's not just a quote to hang on a wall, it's a way to live. When someone offends you, you can see it as an attack or as a test of your composure. When something goes wrong, you can see it as failure or as a lesson sent to strengthen your resolve. It's all in how you respond. Emotions are guests. They come and go. But if you let them drive the train, they'll take you to places you never meant to go. Anger will lead you to words you'll regret. Jealousy to actions that cost your self-respect. Worry will keep you frozen when you know you need to move. You don't need to eliminate emotion. It's a natural part of being human. But you do need to learn to take the wheel. When anger rises, you can breathe, step back, and let it pass like a dark cloud across the sky instead of rushing to act as if you had no choice. When fear approaches, you can observe it, name it, and keep walking though your hands still tremble. Strength isn't found in never wavering. It's in having enough reason not to be carried away each time you do. So, next time you feel your chest burning over something, don't act right away. Pause. Ask yourself, will this reaction take me where I want to go? If not, choose differently. You're not required to live as a victim of emotion. You can live as its master. And if you practice this long enough, you'll come to a beautiful truth. The one who masters himself is the one no storm can shake. 10. Choose who stands beside you with intention. Not all wounds come from enemies. Some of the deepest ones come from those you still call friends. Some boundaries remain uncrossed, not because you lack ability, but because you've lived too long beside people who never let you believe you could. None of us lives in complete isolation. You are shaped not only by experience, but by the voices you allow near your ears. Every misplaced criticism, every half-hearted encouragement, every indifferent gesture, all quietly shape how you think about yourself. And if you let the wrong people stay too close for too long, you'll lose the right version of yourself without even noticing. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "Your soul takes on the color of your frequent thoughts, and most of those thoughts come from the people you let near." That's not just philosophical, it's physiological. The human brain constantly mirrors the emotions, habits, and beliefs of those around it, like a quiet, unblinking mirror. You cannot live beside fire and not be smoked. Be honest. How many relationships are you keeping out of habit? How many people around you constantly shift blame, avoid responsibility, or urge you to deal with it later? How many conversations leave you drained, directionless, stuck in a cycle of complaint? That's not friendship. That's an anchor, quietly pulling you downward, day by day. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold or selfish. It teaches something more essential. You are responsible for your mind, and therefore, you have the right to choose who enters it. Epictetus once said, "Make friends with those who make you better. For those who make you weaker, keep your distance." You don't have to cut everyone off, but you must consciously reorder their place in your life. Some belong in the audience, not on stage. Some may listen to your stories, but not influence your choices. Some should remain in the past so you can move fully into your future. And on the other hand, you must seek and nurture the right relationships. Those who are not only capable, but disciplined, not only smart, but honest, not only driven by outer success, but grounded in inner virtue. Around them, you don't have to perform because their presence alone makes you want to rise. If you haven't found such people yet, start by becoming one. Learn, train, keep your word, do the right thing. And somehow, those who resonate with that frequency will begin to appear. As Seneca said, the good are drawn to each other. They recognize each other even in silence. The world outside is loud. If you don't choose your companions deliberately, the world will choose them for you, and the cost is often your direction. Remember, You don't need a crowd. A few right people are enough to pull your whole life in a new direction. I used to think that to change my life, I needed a dramatic push, a rare opportunity, a wake-up call, or something radically different. But after many cycles of confusion and disappointment, I realized things began to change the day I finally sat with myself and learned to master each small thought. Not through explosive power, but through quiet discipline, little by little. Not by fleeing emotions, but by observing and redirecting them, rather than being driven by them. I'm not perfect. I still get stuck, still get angry, still doubt myself, but I've learned this. Every time you choose self-control over reaction, presence over distraction, truth over excuses, you take a step in the right direction, and that, for me, is the most reliable path to growth. Quiet, but steady. If this journey made you feel accompanied, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next message. Remember, you don't need to shout to prove your worth. Just live with intention, quiet, grounded, and steady like a rock in the waves. Because sustainable change doesn't begin with the world. It always begins within you. See you in the next video.